The introduction of ironclad warships in the 19th century, like the HMS Warrior or the USS Monitor, completely changed naval warfare. The old wooden ships of the line that had characterized sea battles since the 1600s, even those retrofitted with steam engines, suddenly found themselves obsolete against these new vessels. Their cannonballs just bounced off an ironclad's armor, while the ironclad could fire it or simply ram a wooden ship until it sank. By the American Civil War, a single ironclad could decimate an entire squadron of traditional warships, and the idea that a wooden ship could outright defeat a full-fledged ironclad became borderline unthinkable. And yet, that's exactly what happened on May 21st, 1879 off the coast of South America, changing the course of an entire war. Welcome to Second-Hand History. In 1879, a territorial dispute over the Atacama Desert triggered a war between Chile and an alliance of Peru and Bolivia. Ever since independence, the three countries shared a murky, ill-defined border in the area, and for a while, that was fine. The Atacama is one of the driest, most inhospitable spots in the world. Then came a global surge in demand for guano and nitrates, two potent fertilizer ingredients found in abundance in the area. Tensions soared as all three nations rushed to stake their claim on the resources. Bolivia and Peru entered a secret alliance against Chile, and when Bolivia's government tried to impose a tax on Chilean mines in the region, Chile declared war, triggering the pact. Because Bolivia lacked a navy, Chile was able to quickly occupy its main port of Antofagasta and then turn its attention to its real maritime foe, Peru. Their navies each possessed two modern ironclads that formed the backbone of their fleets, and a handful of older wooden ships. Chile's ironclads were slightly newer, while Peru also had two older, not entirely seaworthy iron monitors purchased from the US. But, with the Peruvian navy safely anchored under the protection of the coastal batteries of its fortified base port of Callao, Chilean Admiral Juan Williams Rebolledo decided to blockade the less well-defended trading port of Iquique to cut off Peru's exports, goading the Peruvian fleet to fight in the open. But the Peruvians wouldn't take the bait, not even when Rebolledo began to raid coastal Peruvian communities. Frustrated and under pressure to produce results, he eventually departed Iquique with most of his fleet and headed for Callao, leaving behind his two oldest wooden ships, the Esmeralda and the Covadonga, to continue Iquique's blockade. Rebolledo planned to launch a sneak attack to destroy Peru's two modern ironclads, the Huáscar and the Independencia, while they were still at anchor. When he reached Callao, though, they were nowhere to be found. The Peruvian ironclads had already left, bound for Iquique, where Rebolledo had just left two frail wooden ships to man the blockade. Back in Iquique, the Esmeralda and the Covadonga spotted the approaching Peruvian ironclads and realized that they were in trouble. As the Chileans braced themselves, the Huáscar split off towards the Esmeralda, while the Independencia aimed for the Covadonga. The battle played out as two distinct engagements. Although it was hopelessly outgunned, the Esmeralda stood its ground, water, as the Huáscar drew closer. It couldn't outrun the new ship, and Peruvian land artillery kept it from seeking safety in the shallows. The Huáscar's main guns opened fire, missing most of their shots but eventually punching clean through the Esmeralda's wooden hull, igniting a fire. The Esmeralda's cannonballs just bounced off the Huáscar's armor. The ironclad reached melee range and rammed the Chilean ship. The Esmeralda's captain led a quixotic boarding attempt, but was quickly gunned down. After waiting to see if the Chileans would surrender, the Huáscar continued to ram the Esmeralda until the wooden ship finally sank. Any surviving Chilean crewmen were rescued and then taken prisoner. Meanwhile, the Esmeralda's even less well-armed counterpart, the Covadonga, tried to flee. The Independencia steamed after it. During the chase, the Chilean schooner deliberately hugged the area's jagged coastline. As the smaller, lighter ship, the Covadonga had a shallower draft than its heavy iron pursuer, meaning that it didn't sit as deep in the water and could therefore navigate shallows more easily. Unable to line up a shot from its cannons, the Independencia tried to ram the Covadonga, but the Chilean ship bobbed and weaved out of the way each time. Additionally, sharpshooters on the Covadonga picked off Peruvian sailors whenever the ships got close, rendering the Independencia's forward gun virtually unusable and killing or injuring the main helmsman. Then, as the chase took the two ships over a submerged reef, the Independencia violently ran aground. The Covadonga had sailed over it just fine thanks to its shallower draft, but the deeper-sitting ironclad slammed into the rocks below, gouging a hole beneath the waterline. As seawater flooded into the lower decks, the Independencia's captain tried to reverse, but the ship was firmly stuck. Just like that, the tables turned. The Covadonga wheeled around towards the stern of its helpless pursuer and began to fire at it with its small guns, not doing particularly much damage but deepening the sense of chaos. The Independencia's captain tried to scuttle the ship by blowing up its ammunition, but the water had already reached its magazines, rendering the gunpowder inert. With no other options, the massive Peruvian ironclad struck its colors and raised a flag of surrender. Before the Covadonga could collect its prize, the Huáscar came into view and chased it off. The Chileans were able to get away, and the Huáscar's crew realized that the Independencia was unsalvageable. They picked up the survivors and set the ship's remains on fire. News of the battle reached Chile. The Esmeralda and its heroic last stand won the lion's share of public praise, but militarily, the destruction of the Independencia was the more important event. In one day, Peru lost half of its modern naval contingent, crippling its fleet. The Chileans had only lost one of their oldest wooden ships. And moreover, the Esmeralda's fight to the bitter end had tied up the Huáscar when it might have otherwise been free to intervene in the situation with the Independencia. In the coming months, Chile would go on to capture the Huáscar, leaving Peru with just wooden ships and 2 aging, barely mobile coastal monitors purchased from the United States. Now firmly in control at sea, Chile could ferry troops and conduct amphibious landings at will, paving the way to its eventual victory in 1884 and the acquisition of the entire disputed region. The Battle of Punta Gruesa, as it came to be known, was nowhere near enough to save wooden ships from obsolescence. Not only had the outcome partly come down to luck, but this wasn't even the first time an ironclad had lost when it ran aground near an enemy. During the American Civil War, the CSS Manassas, a former civilian steam tug that the Confederates had given a gun and some thin armor, accidentally ran aground while trying to dodge a ramming attack from the USS Mississippi, which proceeded to bombard it with fire until it blew up. Granted, the Manassas was only half the size of the more famous CSS Virginia and widely regarded as less a true warship than an engineering curiosity, but the point is that the issue of ships running aground was not a new issue, nor even necessarily unique to ironclads. Yet to dismiss Punta Gruesa as a mere historical curiosity would be a massive disservice. This was the only instance we could find of a full-sized, purpose-built ironclad being forced to surrender in combat with a wooden vessel. And for the War of the Pacific's belligerents, the result was anything but trivial. But what do you think? If you have any thoughts on this South American war, or know of a similar incident in naval history, let us know in the comments.
Wait, that's all you're going to cover? You aren't going to explore how this ties into the land campaign? Or South America's subsequent naval history? Or the war's lingering effects on all 3 nations?
Nope.
So this really was less about the battle's broader historical significance than just the novelty of a wooden ship beating an ironclad?
Yep.
For shame! History is not just about gathering trivia. You need to go back and revise this script right oomph!
Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe, and hope to see you next time.